of 1997, after which he was never heard from again. Family knew that Dominic would be traveling throughout his summer break, hard to reach, when he failed to make it home for his father's birthday in person. They knew something was wrong, but didn't contact authorities until Dominic missed the start of his fall semester. Now, over the course of this investigation, I was an ancillary member of the team that met and spoke with members of the castle. They were very helpful, a little too helpful, if you ask me, but no one was then. We had dogs on their land. Took a look at the emails, made them waste a whole batch of soap or something to test it for. Anything, really. We got desperate for leads, and they were a very compliant group. They seemed like such a simple answer to a perplexing question. Where did Dom go? The big heads on the case were ready to officially conclude that the castle, while a bunch of odd ducks, were ultimately the harmless type of crazy. I had other thoughts, but we wouldn't get to press for either because the lot of them disappeared. Just gone when we went out that last time. Screams guilty, right? I have for you footage of Castle member Izzy Fox, account of Dominic, and we can discuss after.
He was very curious, overall well-mannered, but there was a restlessness in him that made joining the castle less than ideal for both parties. Yeah, we were happy to host him and were very saddened to hear about his disappearance, but we weren't entirely surprised. He'd been expressing a real disquiet for the path that he was on. School was a lot, and the future was looking scary. No, and I'll admit, I heard this from members of the castle he spent more time with. Well, I know he had been communicating with the gargoyle via email for the months prior, and they were closer. I don't know. Maybe us not knowing him made some things easier to admit. We don't expect him to be anything other than who he is, and I think a lot of other people in his life do. Or he thinks that they do. I wouldn't know. Well, I believe in the power of optimism. Hope leaves the light on for the lost to find and whatnot.
Izzy had followed the castle all the way from San Francisco. I tracked down and visited her parents, who believed she had been dead for years prior to this recording. When I asked why they assumed she was dead, they explained that Izzy had been battling addiction since she was a teen, had disappeared before and popped up at hospitals all over the Pacific Northwest. Once a long enough period of time had passed since seeing their daughter, the Fox accepted that Izzy must have finally OD'd somewhere. No one called for help. I believe the figure they call the gargoyle targets vulnerable people like Izzy. Specifically, I believe that Izzy's drug use made her susceptible to persuasion by way of conditional access to substances the gargoyle knew how to make and had the means to do so on the castle's compound. My theory suggests that the castle revolved around a shadow operation focused on trafficking, and once settled in Arkansas, the production as well of narcotics. Although we never found court-friendly evidence of such activity, it should be noted that they would have had time to prepare the grounds had they been the ones responsible for Dom's disappearance. It's clear to me, and I hope to you all, that Izzy seems to be hiding something in this video. Not necessarily lying, but withholding in some way that has never sat right with me. If Dom truly felt the way Izzy described, perhaps the gargoyle attempted to bring him into the castle, initiate him. A process that involves drinking excessive amounts of liquid called the tonic they swore contained harmless botanicals. But what if they weren't harmless to Dom? What if he had some type of reaction, physiological or psychological, and died too far for an ambulance to reach in time? Or what if he had second thoughts, threatened to rat? Something happened, and I think they happened to know about the perfect place to hide a body, among other things. I present a piece of Amber Jarl's deposition.
No, I don't understand. So it's gonna mess up the computers? How? What kind of errors? Whatever happens. We'll be in the waiting by then, so I doubt it would even affect us very much. Oh, sounds like something that would have got me pretty riled up, though, before the castle, though. Way I was raised made me pretty high-strung. My mom, she grew up in that time where they made everyone do those drills where you pretend that a desk is going to protect you from a nuclear explosion. Yeah, well, they certainly made an impression. My mom had my brother and I convinced that death was around every corner. We had two bunkers. One was in the backyard, and I remember other kids had like flower beds and trampolines, and we had a cellar with spam and gas masks. And the other one was, well, I only ever saw it once. We stayed there for a whole weekend. Something in the news spooked Mom, so we went to the outskirts of town. There's this big piece of land covered in woods. And there was a trailhead. And about every 100 feet or so, there'd be a little roof sticking out like a foot or so above the ground. I remember little shingles and a fake window. And it was real gnomish. And in front of every single roof there was like a little gray mailbox with little letters sticking out of some of them, right? Like people lived in those bunkers full time. And you would open up the roof and there would be a big circular hatch and a long spiral staircase going down. My mom must have found out about that place through her work. She worked for the government, I think. She was like a commissioner or something, but I can't remember. Anyway, she met a lot of important people doing that, so, I mean, and that's how she met the guy that owned the bunker farm.
Amber makes a comment about something called the waiting, which I'd like to address later on, but did you all catch what she was talking about at the end there? A bunker farm? Underground storage would have proven immensely useful for the safekeeping of contraband. Authorities at the time could not confirm this, facility's existence. Don't know if it's too surprising, but we did not find a gnomish village of little red roofed homes anywhere in the woods of the Ozarks. Does anyone here remember when that big piece of land near Eureka Springs was bought out from under some big wig developers? Okay, a few? It kinda came and went as far as news. Couple environmental groups loved it. Well, I believe that was a strategic purchase by the castle. far less concerned with conservation and more so with profit. See, Amber is one of the few castle members who grew up not too far from where the compound was built. So, then it is safe to assume that the bunker farm she refers to, a place her mother only knew about because of her role as a civil servant, is near the same area. That land purchase I mentioned included acres previously managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who still manage the very nearby Beaver Lake. Via my previous employer, I had access to physical records that indicated some of the government activity in this area was subterranean. However, I no longer hold that position which afforded me such privileges, and the publicly available records I've collected seem to be scrubbed of the projects mentioned. But I digress. Allow me to address the waiting Amber mentions in